Hello YouTube, my name's Brad. This is going to be my first attempt at making YouTube videos. Channel's Average Dude Builds. I think that encompasses what I do. Plain, regular guy. Build stuff, I guess. It's mostly going to be old, junky cars like this. Might occasionally get into some different things, but mostly going to be in the shop trying to make cheap junk cars a little better than what they are. Apologize that you're coming from this low angled shot. My phone's just propped up against the wall now. Tripod's on the way in. We're starting rough here. Like I said, I've never filmed myself. First attempt. I accept all criticism, both constructive or if you just want to comment, complain and say I'm doing a terrible job. I'll learn from whatever you put on there. So first few videos are going to be on me working on this 63 Impala here, 4-door. Got it pretty cheap, all original old car. Already done a lot of rust repair on it, trunk and floor wise. Not going to fix any rust. There's some of the lower fenders and stuff like that, but pretty much just patched up all the floors, did all the brakes in it, got it run and drive a little bit, at least to run into the shop here. This video is probably going to be putting the front suspension together, getting it lowered, do control arm, stuff like that. All new steering components. And I'm going to try to wrap it up with getting some wheels and tires put together and put on the car. Hopefully end the video with it dropped down and we could get a good look at what it's finally going to look like on the ground. Which is exciting because it's been on jack stands in the shop in the way here for many months. I'm sure most of you know how that feels. You know, if you buy a cheaper project, it's going to sit longer because it needs more work. So, like I said, hopefully in this video we can wrap up those few little things on the end there and end with a nice visual of car with wheels and tires on the ground. I'm excited, and I hope at least maybe 3 people watch to see that happen. So, a little update on the 4-door 63 I've been working on. To the point, the back suspension is complete. It's got some new trailing arms and drop springs, all for a pretty cheap deal off the marketplace, lightly used. The back springs already had one coil cut, so those are in there. I just looked at the part number on the front springs, and based on it, these are supposed to be a 2.5 drop. And since I don't have drop spindles, we're just going to cut one nice neat coil off of there, so maybe the 2.5 springs become 3.5. You always gotta make time for the little things. You know what I'm saying? Could just threw them in there quick, but that's better than being rusty. And that's the part number, the FCS 6000-D. It'll pull up a 2.5 inch spring. We just made it 3.5. About to get them installed. Get over here. I've already got the new control arms just hung in place loose. We'll put the spring in it and do the old, put the jack on the lower control arm, get it up closer to here, hang the spindle on it, get the upper end, and then it'll be, the suspension in there basically with the cut drop spring. And there's one little arm that bolts across the back of the stock spindle here that puts it to your tie rod. So we'll go. All right, current setup under the car, cut drop spring in. I've got just a little bit of tension holding the spring. It can still wiggle though. Looked up top just to make sure it was sitting centered over the little cup. It's in its right place. And I got my index right. It drops down right by my finger, and that's it right there. So I can hold that in place. Reach way out here, hit some pumps on the jack, and then just get it where that spindle, or that ball joint will meet up with that. So let me get that roughed in place. So quick pause to show, I got it compressed enough now that the spindle will reach both, but I had a little issue. It turns out this used ball joint, the boot, I did have to push it back on there. When I did, it split about halfway down the boot. So it's like 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock. I work night shift tomorrow, so it's not like I can go ride and get a boot. And even if I could, this is pretty decent. I'm kind of proud of it, to be honest. I'll just say it. Biggest zip tie I had. Pushed the boot all the way up, tightened it to hold it on, and then just went round and around electrical tape. I mean, it's got a hold grease better than if it was split wide open. It's not perfect, but that's the best I could do. So we running that. About to get it stabbed through the spindle and get the castle nut on it and get it held in place. Alright, so this is this side pretty well put together. Jack's down, tension on the spring is tight in there. Double check it hit the blocking it. And the coil sitting down in this little notch like it's supposed to be. So I had it up just enough where it was off that jack stand to tell me that all the weight was on this spring. I tightened both the castle nuts. And I actually kind of had to let it down to get some of that spring tension off this bottom one to get the nut to go up enough. It kind of freed it up some. Cotter pin in that one, and that's the only cotter pin I got. So I'm going to have to get some from O'Reilly's tomorrow for that one and the two on the other side. But it'll hold together for now. What else? And then put all the tension back on the spring with the jack and tighten back there on the lower control arm. And then up here, steering box is out, so the steering shaft's all floppy. Moved it around and got the two upper controller arm bolts all tight. So everything's tight over here, assembled minus a cotter pin. And I'm about to put this little steering arm here. Pretty simple. It just bolts to the back of the spindle down in there like that, and that gives you to your tie rod. So bolt that up and then start another side. So do the whole, take the entire pile of tools, go over there, then do the exact same thing again. So that's what's about to happen. Woo! Alright, caught up on the passenger side over here. Just slipped the drums over it where it looked a little more all the way together. That's all the suspension. That just leaves all the steering. I gotta put it back in. I think the next move is going to be to try to replace the rag joint before I put the new reman steering box in. But for now, the suspension's in. I gotta get the cotter pins and put those in next time I'm out. But that's it. Wasn't too bad. Nice, clean, shiny stuff bolted to crunchy old stuff. But all the important stuff's replaced. New brake lines, everything basically. So one thing left. Besides cotter pins, shocks. I do have the, I don't know what brand shocks. Let's go look. Oh yeah, the good stuff. The old Bilstein shocks. The Facebook Marketplace ad, I got it off of a guy said he had it on the car for a few thousand miles and decided he wanted airbags. So all this disc brake kit, back stuff, front stuff, $500. Couldn't beat it. I didn't price it how much it would be all new stuff from CPP, but a lot more than that, I think. So gonna slip the shocks on, suspension done, and then we'll move to this rag joint over here. We'll get the steering started. I took it all out because everything had a little bit of slack here and there, so I went all the way. The steering box had some slack. I adjusted the nut down that you can like back off and run the screw head down, and that took all the slack out of the box. But I had to tighten it a good bit, and I knew that steering box, I don't know, it wasn't going to feel right once you had to tighten the adjuster down that much. So new reman box, just got to try to get this whole, now I'm drawing a blank what it's called, rag joint off of there. Get the new one, and we can try to fit the steering box up to the frame. Alright, so latest, got the shocks installed. It's a little more work than I expected, but you know, not bad. Little Bilstein logos in there, looks pretty cool. That's the worst part, right? Just turning that thing a million times. But shocks are in. I started getting the new steering components out. New rag joint, took it, and I slipped it on the new steering box. It went most of the way on. I imagine once it's hooked to actual steering shafts, it's gonna be a little easier to hammer onto there, but I think it's the right piece, right threads. And then I got the steering box here. Matches the old one, taped off the nice aluminum top piece here, the input shaft, and under here is marked the orientation of, I guess, the center of the box. So mark here to mark here. I didn't feel like getting the punch, but I kind of taped and marked through there, so when I unpeel that, the mark will still be there to know that the steering box is straight. So about to shoot a little black on here. I just kind of scrubbed it down a little bit, put some paint, and then we'll work on getting the old rag joints out. The new one has bolts that hold it in, bolts and nuts, and the old one appears to be riveted on. I think I'm gonna have to get down here and grind this rivet smooth and then knock that pin out, and that'll be the old one removed. So paint steering box, and I'll show you getting how that comes off. All right, update, about to put this new reman steering box in. Point out I still got my yellow line, so this should be perfectly centered, or basically in the middle, left to right wise on the box. And then in the car, steering wheel's perfectly straight up and down. So want to keep putting a lot of effort to make sure everything stays centered and how it's supposed to be. So once we get the box hooked to the frame and hooked to the steering column, I just want the wheel perfectly up and down like this, and then the steering box still centered, you know, the yellow line. And then we're going to have to pay attention again when we go to put the pitman arm on to make sure we have it in the right relation. So that's all painted ready. I took the original 3 bolts that hold it to the frame, gave them a nice little rod on the wire wheel over there to clean them up. Sprayed a little WD, so those are basically brand new bolts now. So I'm about to cut to, we're going to put the box on the frame, get it tightened up, and then get the rag joint, the new fresh rag joint we got in there, hooked to the steering box. So let me show you all that going on. All right, so decent progress. Calling it quits now. It's 3 a.m. I gotta get a shower and get some sleep. Steering box is painted, came out pretty good. So let that sit there and dry. The old rag joint was an absolute pain to get out. A lot of cutting, a lot of grinding. Eventually I got the 2 heads of them studs knocked off of there and punched them out. It wasn't very fun, but the new one does look super fresh. So next time I get to work on it, we'll get the steering box put in and hooked to that, and get the, let's see, idler arm, and what's the one that goes across, you know, the other one. Drag link? Whatever. So that's it for tonight. Front suspension's all together. Pretty happy with that. Steering set up for us to, you know, go on together with new stuff. So I think that's gonna be it. I'll get back out here next time I got work on nights, knock out the steering. I look forward to getting it down the ground eventually. Should be cool. So I've already got 1 bolt stabbed to the frame. It was actually a support for the bumper on the other side of it, so I couldn't get this 1 bolt all the way out. So I actually didn't wire wheel this one.
but it's going to give us a good start as far as hanging it up here. Gonna push it through. I did grab a new lock washer out of my O'Reilly's variety pack of washers. Put that on there. Get this nut started, and this should let us be able to let the box go where it's actually hanging up there. Maybe I should be doing this from up top, but I think I can stake in there. Get a couple threads started. And then on the back, on the old box, there's actually two shims. I didn't expect that when I took the old one off, but they kind of fell out when I dropped it out of here. I imagine from the factory they kind of use those just to keep the steering shaft lined up with the box. They're very thin. I mean, I don't know how much those little shims are doing. I thought about it a little bit. I think I'm just going to put them back exactly how they were. If GM put them in there 60 years ago, they must have known what they were doing. I'll just put it right back. Why not? So that's one bolt kind of started. I want to say I need to look on the old box to see exactly where those shims were. I think they were in the back bolt, so I'm going to get this front one started through here. See how close we're lined up. Ooh. Dust pouring out the frame. That's nice. Very nice. Alright. So that dust just completely filled up those threads. Or dirt rather. Filled up those threads that I cleaned up. Just caked in there. Oh well. New lock washer nut. Started pretty good. Like I said, I gotta go look at that old box quick to see exactly where those shims were. That's them right there, kind of like starter shims. There was an outline on the old box of where they were stuck on there, where all the grease was. So I'm gonna go look at that quick, and they'll tell me where to put those in. I might have to go up top to get the shims. Once all three of those are on there, get my little ratchet and run it down there. Let me, gotta get that actually. Hold that thought. Let me go look at the old box. Alright, so it looks, I was correct. The shims are on the back bolt. I imagine that would kick the box left and right to line it up with the steering shaft. So I'm going to get the bolts started through down here and then drop the shims in from the engine bay. Alright, shims dropped in. I didn't have to look at the old steering box. It was pretty obvious on the frame. There was a perfectly clean outline where the shims were. I'll probably make them fall out once or twice, getting this box actually tightened up, but they are pretty easy to drop in from up there. I don't have much of a plan. I'm just going to tighten all three, and then I think we'll just have to kind of eyeball if it's in line with the steering shaft. I really don't know how far off it could be. There's the shims falling out like I told you they would. I guess we'll tighten this back bolt first, where we can go ahead and lock those in. And they both fall? No, just one. Let's see if I can get them in there from right here where I ain't gotta get up and down. Let's not be blowing the knees out just for a couple little steering box shims. I had to admit, didn't know that was a thing. I guess back in the 60s, that's how they did it. Or maybe that's the thing even in later years. I really don't know. Pretty convenient. The box is holding that nut for me, so I don't have a wrench on it right now. That's working out pretty well. Alright, that's pretty basic. I won't make you watch me flop around under here anymore. Gonna tighten all three, and I'll cut you back on when we go to hook the rag joint up there on it. Alright, quick update. Steering box installed, hooked to our new rag joint. I do want to point out a mistake I made. I ended up bolting the box all the way tight to the frame, and I was hoping there'd be enough slack in the shaft in this joint up here to collapse it and get the rag joint to start over the input shaft. Not the case. It was about 1/2 inch too long to be able to get around it. So I ended up just unbolting the rag joint. And then I kind of had to eyeball with the steering wheel centered and this centered. But I put the rag joint, I had to take this bolt all the way out, which is what holds it on the input shaft. Get it slid down the splines. Clean those up really good, WD-40 where it slid on there good. And then slip the steering shaft onto the rag joint. Double check that everything was centered, and then cinch this down, and then ran these down. One complaint, these nylon nuts, I've never seen them. Typically the nylon's like white, but it's blue in these. And I did, take them off and put them back, and putting them back on, super easy to turn, like just past finger tight. So I think once we're all wrapped up and I get this done, I think I'm going to replace those. It just scares me kind of how loose these were, undoing them and redoing them. So that cost me a little bit, but no big deal. Trip to hardware store, we'll figure out these threads, put some new nylon nuts on there before we're done. Or worst case, double nut, we'll see. I just don't want anything in the steering being as loose as those feel, because they're pretty damn loose. So this is done, everything's all tight. Next I'm gonna go get the kit. I bought the CPP kit, I just got through Summit. It's got everything else, the pitman arm, the drag link, tie rods, couplers, everything. So I'm about to go get that laid out. So that's gonna be the next step, get that, all the other pieces ready to go in. I do want to point out this is a power steering car, and this is not a power steering kit I got. We're just going to go with manual steering. The factory power steering is really just like a stabilizer shock type deal that goes side to side. To replace that or rebuild it would have been pretty pricey or time consuming to put it all back factory fresh, you would say. Other alternative was CPP does have a box that factory location, and it's a power steering, newer style box where the power steer lines go straight to the box. It's actually the same price as this reman I got, which made me heavily consider it. But I guess with the addition of the power steering lines going to the box, it's longer, and you actually run into an issue where the box gets into the radiator here. They make a radiator that's actually notched out on this corner to fit that box. Now, if you were making a really nice car, that would probably be the best way to go. The box isn't anymore. You gotta pay up to get the notched out radiator, which looks kind of goofy, but really to keep power steering in here, that would have been the best option. This is what I went with. I'm fine with the manual steering. It's probably gonna only have 15, 16 inch wheels on it, nothing too big or hard to turn. And it's got nearly a school bus steering wheel in here, so we're just going to eat our Wheaties and manually maneuver this thing around. So when we get the new kit out the box for the drag link and everything, I'll get that kind of roughed out and get back with you. So took a quick break. I just wanted to show the CPP steering kit here. It's got the pitman arm, idler arm, drag link, center link, whatever you want to call it, inners and outers, and the little connecting sleeves for them. I want to say 220 bucks, something like that. I did take the time and I priced all the pieces separately on Rock Auto, and price-wise, it was very close, and that was getting the cheaper options on Rock Auto. So if you need one or two pieces, just get the individual ones. But like I said, on mine, being as old as it is, it was pretty, everything had a fair bit of slack. So to that point, it's like, all right, it would be kind of a waste of time to replace just one or two. I kind of needed everything. So pretty nice looking kit. We're about to get it installed. I will say, if you want to go from power steering to manual like I did, I think the only difference part-wise is the drag link and the pitman arm. I just held them against the old ones, and it doesn't look very different. Like, they have to be pretty close, but everything I read, which don't quote me, do your own research, but it was about a week ago since maybe 2 weeks since I ordered it all. I want to say those are the only two parts that are slightly different between manual and power steering. So plan is to get this hung on the box, get it indexed properly. It looks like in the splines here, there's a couple that are wider, so I'm hoping that makes it idiot proof, where this will go on, the most obvious way correctly. Get that on, and then I'll probably go ahead and hang the idler arm on the other side of the frame and work on getting the center link in between them. So 1, 2, 3, and then we'll worry about the tie rods at the end. Let me get a couple of those pieces on, I'll show you how it looks. Alright, we've got some pretty good progress here. Pitman arm installed in the steering box. Pretty new center link to the drag link on the frame over here. Not drag link, the idler arm over here. I had to make 3 or 4 trips back and forth just to check my old stuff to make sure I had all the orientation right as far as which way this kicked out, and I'm not perfect, very far from it. I'll go ahead and admit I actually put the pitman arm, I lined it up just right straight, but instead of going this way, I totally tightened it on going this way. One of those simple enough mistakes where you kind of go look at yourself in the mirror for a few minutes and question, should I be doing this? And the answer is yes, because you can fix mistakes like that, It is what it is. Felt pretty dumb, but flipped it around. Luckily, I didn't cinch it all the way on there. Couldn't quite get my puller in. I had to use a little wedge to kind of get some space, and then it came right off of there. Luckily, all new stuff, so it wasn't seized on or nothing. Flipped it around, got it all tightened down, so castle nuts are all tight, holes are lined up on those, so these 3 main pieces here are done. I did overlook, this doesn't look like it's coated. I'm gonna have to kind of mask off and put a little black paint on that pitman arm there, no big deal. So that's the big pieces. Now we can move on the ends here. We gotta get from our there to there. So the plan, I'm gonna take the new inner and outers, get a measurement off of these old ones, and just to get in the ballpark. Obviously we'll have to adjust them to get our alignment just right. I'm gonna just make the new ones match the length on these old ones, pop them in there, get them to match how everything else is, tighten down, get ready for the cotter pin. Okay, basic rundown on setting up these tie rods. Both the old ones were the same length, so I just used the less crusty one to kind of use as my copy here. Started off, I ran the jam nuts on the new tie rods first, because if I put all this together and I forgot those, I'd probably cry. But those on first. The collars are aluminum, so I put some anti-seize on all 4 tie rods, and then just try to run them in evenly. And then once I got, each side ran in pretty far, I didn't even get the measuring tape. I just kind of eyeballed close to the same length as the old ones, and then matched the 2 together. So I'll probably run these down, not snug, but just, get them close, because once we set the car on the ground, we'll be backing those off to adjust to get our alignment just right. Let's see, the only thing I got left, I got to put the grease zerks in there. Quick, easy way to tell if you want to see inner and outer. This one right here that has it in the center, that's going to be the outer out by the wheel, because there's all kinds of room to get there to grease it. And the inner, since it's basically really close to the
engine cross member there. There's no room to get behind it to grease it, so the grease zerk goes on the outside of it. So inner grease zerk on the side, inner, and then outer tie rod grease zerk on the back of it. So I'm gonna put the zerks in there and then go pop them in the car. And then that's gonna pretty much conclude the whole front suspension. I got one or two other things we might get done tonight. And then, like I mentioned, down the road, we'll get it aligned. Just to get it going down the road, I do have some basic plates we can use to align it. I've used it 3 or 4 times now with pretty good success. It's just these plates under all this junk here. You put each of those against the tire on each side, measure from here, and then from the front and measure from the back across, and then get them all set like that. And a couple of cheap plates off of Amazon there, and you could get a pretty good alignment. Definitely good enough to get to an alignment shop, but I've had some cheaper, smaller tires that I don't care for that much that you can do that and ride them. If I had some big fancy wheels like some 22s or some expensive tires, I'd do that and take it to the alignment shop. Well, some cheap used tires, use the plates, get as close as you can, and they'll ride like that. Good enough for us. Alright, not too much longer here, and I think this is a pretty good final shot. Inners and outers in, cotter pins in, everything. I went back and put them in the ball joints because I didn't have those the other night. Picked up this little assorted pack from O'Reilly's. I think that was about 12 bucks. Not the exact size, but they came out pretty good. Obviously, all the steering pieces, they were new, so they came with pins. They don't look used. I think I mentioned before, but all the suspension stuff was used on Marketplace. So that's why I had to pick up the pins for the ball joints. But that little pack got the job done. They're close enough. Bolts ain't gonna back out. So I think that wraps up the steering, other than setting alignment and greasing everything. And I don't feel like dealing with my old raggedy grease gun right now and getting grease everywhere. So I think when the day comes we set it down, set the alignment, we'll just grease everything then. So last task of the night, steering's all complete. I've mentioned a few times it was reman box, so I've got to turn this old box in as a core, get my $75 back. It still has the old pitman arm stuck on it. So right now, got the nut taken off of it. I got the puller in place, and just to give that puller the best chance it's got, I got the torch running in automatic mode here, warming it up. We'll let that go for a minute, and we'll see if the oil impact won't bust it off of there. That's the plan. Backup, if that fails, the only reason I'm taking it off, it came with like the nice molded foam insert for the box, and you know, obviously the new one came without the arm on it, so I'd like to be able to reuse that box and just toss this in there. If that won't come off, I think it'll probably fit in there pretty good if I just cut that pitman arm probably across about right there. So if the puller breaks or just won't do it, that's the backup plan. Let's see, let me take my glove off, see if I can see if the impact won't do it. That should be hot enough. Oh, Pittsburgh or Central Pneumatic, whatever you are. Huh. What an idiot. I had the impact the wrong way. Stand by. I took my gloves off. Ooh, that thing's hot. What do you know? Only had a torch running on it for 5 minutes. Okay, sorry about that. See, these impacts, they run 2 ways, so you can both loosen and tighten. And to use this puller properly, you have to tighten this bolt. So let's see what happens when I do that. Neat. Okay, so now we box this up.
mail it back to Summit, and $75. Not too bad.